Hello and thank you for downloading the Panto podcast once again. This week I've gone north of the border. Yes, we've gone up to bonnie Scotland, Edinburgh in fact, and we meet local baddie, Grant Stott. Now Grant has been performing for 25 years. We find out how he got into pantomime, how he stayed in pantomime, and also a certain way in which he plays a baddie. It's a fantastic story that he shares with us, and I hope you enjoy it. We also talk, unfortunately, about the Panto blues, a phenomenon that nobody's really spoken about, and that's pretty much prevalent at this time of year now, where productions are either ending or have ended, and chin up, guys, we'll be doing it all over again in about 10 months' time. So sit back and enjoy. Grant Stott. Yeah, welcome along to the Panto podcast. I'm joined today by Grant Stott. Hello, Grant.
Hello there. Thanks for having me on. This is very exciting.
It's definitely a bit of fun to get a baddie on for a change.
Yeah.
We're getting all the good guys. And
Who wants to be a good guy?
Well, that's how you started off, wasn't it, in Panto?
Yeah, I was. Well, there's this joke going around. I was so far down the bill that people thought I was the printer on the poster. When it started off. But I mean, I kind of got my back. Got the back door into Panto through doing kids television up here in Scotland back in 1993, and it was a fabulous story how it all happened. I was filming with Paul Nicholas and Barnum. They were in town at the Glasgow King's Theatre, and myself and the female presenter called Arlene, we went along to do a piece with Paul Nicholas behind the scenes at the show. And we did the interview and everything, that all went fine. And they says, well, look, we want to do some film with you on stage with the props and everything like that. So we then go on stage. It was between matinee and evening. And the two of us were just having a laugh with the camera. But unbeknown to us, Billy Differ, who was the boss at the King's Theatre in Glasgow at the time, had wandered into the stalls and was just watching in the dark. And he had this wee little gem of an idea. I wonder if they would fancy doing Panto. And the next thing, he's on the phone to a producer, who's a guy called Jim Brown, said, look, got this idea, we could maybe use Grant and Arlene in the Panto. Do you think they'd be interested? And I was like, yeah, bite your hand off. And that was my first gig in Panto. It was Dick Whittington with Alan Stewart, funnily enough, and Chris Biggins. And the roles that we had were kind of equivalent of the sort of captain and his mate in Dick Whittington. And that started it. And then the following year I came through here as Little John at the King's in Edinburgh, and then back through to Glasgow for 3 years. But yeah, it was a kind of, doing all the little ancillary parts and, supporting roles. And then I got the role once as the Prince in Snow White in 2002, and I was rubbish. I was dreadful, and I thought that was my Panto career finishing there. That was as good as it was going to get. I got a principal role, but I was terrible. And Paul Elliott phoned me up after the run. He went, right, we've tried you as a goodie. That clearly isn't working. How do you fancy being a baddie next year? And that was 2003. That was Jack and the Beanstalk, Flesh Creep, and I've been getting the boos and hisses ever since.
What do you prefer, honestly?
Honestly, bad. I mean, I've got the best of both worlds here, because I work with Alan and obviously Andy normally. There's a lot of comedy, and there's a massive emphasis put on the comedy in our shows, and so I get to be the villain and I get to do all the bad stuff. But I also get to be into the routines as well, and can play and cross that line of having everybody booing you and hissing you and hating you, but then you can also make them laugh as well, which is just perfect for me.
It's a lovable baddie, isn't it?
I like to think so, but when I get the chance to be bad, I can be bad. And I traumatise kids. I've had children having to get carried out, and that's it's very rewarding and very satisfying. But this particular villain isn't quite so scary. But he's getting quite a bit of attention, old Flash Bobby. Has everyone explained for our listeners down south the connotation?
Would you like to? Because I had to ask somebody as well. Did you? I'm sorry. I do live in Northumberland, but even that sort of goes.
Well, we've got a lot of our dancers are from England as well. We've had to explain to them. Bobby, as well as being obviously short for Robert and Bobby, but Bobby with an A in it is kind of a Scottish affectionate term for man's best friend, and I'm not talking about his dog here. So there's that kind of raised eyebrow and that double meaning to the name, which has just given me a whole range of different opportunities to have fun.
Yes, your flashbulb.
So
Yes.
I don't ever flash my bobby. I come close, but yeah, it's been great fun doing that.
What's it like when you get, for instance, there's a certain scene where you have your clothes ripped off?
Yes.
Was that given to you
Well,
in the script?
That was
or?
presented to me when I read the script. I was like, oh, we're doing what was famously the old Bush of Truth routine. And I was like, oh, right, we're doing that, are we? And then, first of all, we went out for dinner with Michael Harrison and Ed Curtis and Andy and Alan. And I brought up the subject of my getting naked on stage. And I was like, so can I just clarify, when we get ripped off and we get ripped off and it gets ripped off, what am I left with on stage? Well, we've got this lovely big green fig leaf for you. I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, but what else? And they're like, well, that's it. That's all you need. I'm like, no, it's not. This is a 51-year-old body that's not been in the gym in a long time. So thankfully, there's the treasure that is a bodysuit that helps.
Really?
Yes.
Never.
I know. From far enough back, it can get you looking twice. But yeah, that was that gives an incredible reaction.
Do you remember the first time you ever went to Panto when you were a child?
I was trying to think about that, and I think I can certainly remember the first time I came here to see, and I'm pretty sure it was a Panto. I must have been. I lost my granny when I was 8 years of age, and she brought me here, so I must have been somewhere in the region of 6 or 7. And I can even remember where I was sitting in the grand circle, and looking down, and just then being plunged into darkness, and then the lights coming up, and there's a Scottish entertainer called Peter Morrison who I remember crossing a bridge upstage and singing this song, and I don't remember much more about it, but just remember being completely blown away. I'd been to the cinema and I'd seen all the Disney films there, and I'd obviously seen stuff on the telly, but I'd never seen anything like this. So it's lovely that I've now carved out a career in this room, in this theatre. That's where it started for me, so it's lovely.
You said that you started off kind of accidentally. What about as a child, though? Did you want to get into performing?
I did. All through school, anyone asks you, as is often the case, what do you want to be when you leave school? What are you going to do when you leave school? I'm like, well, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to go to drama college. I'm going to be an actor. And I'm like, all right. And nobody flinched because I was involved in all the shows at school, and I was doing O-level drama and did anything that was performing on stage. I was involved. So that was a kind of natural progression. So I thought, so this was my master plan. It's like, oh yeah, what do I need to get into drama college? 4 O grades, 2 hires. That's what I need to get in. So as soon as I got 4 O grades and 2 hires, I then just kicked back and enjoyed 6th year and whatever. And then there was one flaw in my plan, was that as much as I got the qualifications, what I didn't think about was whether or not I'd get in. And I didn't get in. I didn't get into any of the drama colleges that I applied for. I applied for all the courses that were going on in Scotland. I went for a couple of the big ones down in London. And I remember being completely knocked back by that, because I thought, God, what do you mean? Because I'd gone through school getting all the funny parts, getting all the big, and as this must be the case for so many kids. And then all of a sudden you go into the real world and you're out there with kids who are just as good as you, better than you, funnier than you, better singers than you. And it was a bit of a shock to the system. I didn't get in. I was like completely set back. So I got a proper job. I worked in the police for 4 years. I joined the cops, and wasn't very good at that either. So then started working in radio and television, and that's kind of how I saw it. It took me a little while to get onto the path that I was hoping to be on when I was at school, but I got there eventually.
And what about the radio? How did you get into that?
Radio was, because I'd been DJing, when I was in sort of latter couple of years, again, performing, getting up stage with a microphone and behind decks and playing tunes, and I worked in clubs here in Edinburgh, and I worked in Top Man in Princes Street. That gave me a wee taste for doing radio compared to DJing in clubs and whatever. So I quite liked the idea of being on radio, and that was always, this could be quite interesting. And then a pal of mine who was working on our local station here in Edinburgh, Radio 4, he got in touch, says, look, we're split into 2 stations, FM and AM. We have all these pretty crap shifts that need presenters. So I'm like, all right. So I fired in a cassette and got a couple of slots, and that was how radio started. So I left the police and went to work in commercial radio.
What about as a child, when you're actually watching that pantomime for the very first time?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that experience? Did you enjoy the baddie?
I did. I think the memories of that time are, as I say, because I was so young. But I think it must have had some sort of effect on me, because all through school, all through primary school, and I can't remember not being on wanting to be on a stage and performing and do drama and be in shows and things. And it certainly must have had an effect on me. And to actually, and I keep harking back to this, but I don't think I can ever achieve anything that will give as much pride as playing this theatre every year, because I used to walk past this theatre on my way to drama at the Annex. We had, school was in two sort of campuses. There was one just on the other side of the meadows over there, and then another one along the road at Gilmer Place. So I would come through here at lunchtime to go to drama in the afternoon, and we'd walk past the King's Theatre, and I would be the kid that was pressing his nose up at the glass, looking at the photographs, the production shots of the show, and you'd see the villain and the stars and whoever was on stage. And at that time, when we did a school show, it lasted 3 nights. I remember looking, going, imagine doing a show that would run for 2 months, or in those days, back in February, March. The Pantos went on to almost Easter. And I was going, that would be just brilliant. That would be just the best thing ever. And it is. So that's all of these emotions. The fact that I came here, the fact that I walk past this place all the time, and so getting to be here all these years and getting to be here every year and part of this annual tradition is I'm so proud of that.
Did you gel instantly with Alan when you started working with him?
Well, Alan was top of the bill with Biggins, as I say. Arnie and I were way down there, and we were just one of the members of the cast. But Alan and I, we got on, and we didn't actually do much together on stage at all at that time. But I actually had my very first lesson in discipline with Alan, and Chris Biggins and Jimmy Chisholm, who's playing the Dame, were doing the plates routine. Don't touch the plates, leave the plates alone. Chucking the plates, coming down the slide, running back and forward to each other. And Alan had the tag, and he would be standing in the wings with this monstrous pile of plates. And he would walk on at the end of the routine. They would chuck him one plate, he would drop this huge pile of plates, and that would be the tag that knocked down. So and our job, after it was with the ensemble, was to go and then sweep up all the plates and get the stage clear for the next bit. So of course I'm hanging out with the dancers, and I'm giving them a bit of chat and a bit of flirt and raising an eyebrow and show them how funny I am. And I had my big broom, you see, and Alan's standing there waiting for his cue to go on with this big pile of plates in the wings. He's watching the whole routine unfold. So unbeknown to him, I get my broom and then gently put it between his legs, thinking how dangerous am I, looking at the girls, and the girls are all going, don't do that, I don't, this is funny. And I'm just pretending that I'm going to trip him up, thinking I had plenty of time. However, he hears his cue, and he then goes forward to go on stage with the plates, hits the broom, and trips and stumbles, remarkably keeps all the plates upright and where they should be. But my life flashed before my eyes at that point. I thought I'd not only killed that routine, but I'd killed Alan Stewart, I'd killed my career in Panto, and it had only just begun. And he turned round and came off stage, and he just went, "Don't you ever do that again." And then started laughing. So it was one of those moments about how, disciplined, as much as you're relaxed and you're getting on, you're having fun, you've got to be disciplined in the wings. You can't muck about, especially when someone's got a pile of about 50 plates to take them on the scene. So that was a kind of wee moment for Alan and I, one of our earliest little fleeting moments. But he's been brilliant to work with over the years, and we've worked together a number of times. I think over the sort of 25 that I've done, I've maybe done 5 or 6 without him. He's not been involved in. So yeah, we've done quite a lot together, and again, he's helped me and nurtured me, and as I worked my way up the poster, and to get to do these routines with him this year has been terrific.
What about this year without Andy Gray?
It's been really hard. It has been really hard for the three of us. For everyone, Ed as well, and everybody here at the Kings, because Andy is, as you've just seen, it's a big old romp of a show. The audience come in, they hope they know what they're going to get, and we always try to deliver it. And we take a lot of pride in putting effort into every show, that when they do come, they will always get value for money. They will always get a rip snorter of a show, and obviously, not having someone as important, as big a character as Andy is a worry. And we could never replace him in the show. That wouldn't be fair on Andy, and it wouldn't be fair on whoever it would be that would come in and try and play that part. So that was an easy decision to make, that we're not going to replace him. So Alan and I were like, okay, we'll step up, and we'll take what would have been all Andy's bits and merge them between the two of us, and we'll take the responsibility ourselves. And it's worked as best it can. We set out to do him proud, and I think we have done. I think the reaction from the audience has been phenomenal, and we're very pleased. But it's been tough. Andy's recuperating at home, and he knows what's going on. He knows where he should be. He knows what we should all be doing. He knows the fun that he should be having, and that's a deliberate. We do a little. There's a couple of little Easter eggs that we plant in for Andy, and he's not forgotten in the show, and we want him to still feel that he's part of the show, and that's why we do what we do at the end, and he gets the end result from that after every show as well. So he's still, we communicate every single day. So
I even noticed on the car.
Yeah,
Andy won.
That's a little touch. That's just a little. If you get it, you get it. But it's it's because we don't. At the end of the day, we've got to do a show, and we can't stop the show and remind everyone that we're all missing Andy, which we are. We've still got to do that show, and that's what Andy would want as well. Andy would say, just get on and do it and knock the socks off. But we've placed little moments there for him to say that he is part of the show still, even though he can't physically be on stage with us, and he's sitting up in his house in his Batman socks and Batman onesie. He's still part of the show.
What about matinees? What's your favourite, matinee or an afternoon or an evening performance?
Well, you've just sat through a matinee, and Alan said that comment at the end. It's like a Saturday night out there today, and it was, and half top tier all schools matinees. We had what I think is a perfect mix. We had a whole bunch of kids, but away at the back, and I think we had a good few office outings down the front, because there was a few sort of work Christmas jumpers. They all looked like they'd been out for a bit of prosecco beforehand or whatever, and so we had a really good mix this afternoon. I would say my favourite shows are actually in January, and they are the last two weekends. The last two Friday and Saturday nights, for some reason, are very special. And I don't know what it is, but I just feel that there's I think maybe the Christmas and New Year is over, so everyone's kind of a bit more relaxed. They're not quite so uptight and fraught. This is like a continuation of Christmas for them, so they've deliberately come late in January to come and see it before it ends. We're flying. We know the show inside out and back to front. All the little bits have been ironed out, and we've pretty much dotted every I and crossed every T, and everything's flying. So we've got a great show, and we're kind of heading towards the end as well, so we're socialising a bit more, so we're having fun. But just the last two Fridays and Saturdays, for some reason, this place just goes crazy. It's brilliant. And I always look forward to those, which is a lovely way to go out, because if it kind of sort of petered off away to nothing, it would be a hell of a depressing come down. But I say, let's get Christmas. We'll do Christmas, great. New Year, great. We've still got a couple of brilliant weeks to come.
Any influences that have crafted your baddie?
I interviewed Stanley Baxter about 4 weeks ago. I went down to. I've been working on a documentary for Radio Scotland on this place, on the King's Theatre, ahead of the refurbishment it's going to get. And I says, look, we've got to get Stanley. We've got to get Stanley Baxter. And went down to see him, and just harking back to what we talked about earlier on, he told me this brilliant story about when he was playing One of the Ugly Sisters, and how he went to steal the ticket, and he had this long skinny arm of his with a huge arm length silk glove, which walked like a spider, he described it, along the mantelpiece to where the ticket was. And he says you could feel the entire room going, because everyone saw what was going to happen. He was going to take Cinderella's ticket. And he says, I just took this moment, and you could hear it was silent. He says, so where did this invitation to the royal ball come from? When comfy is a very Scottish word, which then instantly broke it, which took it from terrifying to hilarious. And just his use of the Scottish dialect was brilliant. So I definitely try and use that as the villain, and drop in Scottish slang words and put them into the songs. I'll put them into the dialogue, whatever I'm using, because I think if it's used correctly, it can be very, very funny. And you can, Raj is a great Edinburgh. It's not just a Scottish word. It's an Edinburgh, east coast of Scotland word for an idiot. And so if you stick in the word Raj at the right time, it gets a lovely reaction. So I always make sure that I'm putting them in. So Stanley Baxter, I like to nick a bit of Stanley. There was a lovely Jan Wilson, who is no longer with us, but she was, I worked with her for a few years in Glasgow and here in Edinburgh, and she used to play Queen Rat in Dick Whittington and things like that, and she used to do this lovely thing, and I told this story at her funeral, and I kind of encompass it a little bit on the walk down. And she goes, it's a lovely thing you can do. You can come down the stairs and all your villainy down the stairs, and the audience will immediately roar, and you'll get halfway down the stage and then just stop and go, what? What? Oh, come on, what? And she goes, they'll get the boo, which will then turn into a cheer and a roar. And you can sort of sail on that and do it. And that's what I do. And it's it's a tiny little trick that she taught me. So it's, you go around and you nick these little bits and take these little moments. But I got full permission, so she's...
Of
she was
course,
all right.
yeah. Any favourite baddies you played over the years?
Last year's Wicked Stepmother is certainly up there as one of my favourites. I did Ugly Sister a couple of years ago in Cinderella as well, but I'd always wanted to be the Wicked Stepmother. It took me, 24 years to finally get to do it, and given it was this production, given it was kudos and everything, we absolutely went for it. And I remember it'd been decided that's what we're doing, and it was about the February. We just finished the previous year, I think it was Aladdin, and I was doing Glasgow for work, and I was wandering down Sauchiehall Street. My phone went. It was Teresa Knowlton who runs the costume department for Kudos, and she goes, right, what do you want? Michael Harrison tells me you have a specific look in mind for the Wicked Stepmother. And I'm like, yeah. I wonder about it. I says, well, you know how what Paul O'Grady had the previous year, and Paul O'Grady is similar to me. He's tall, very thin, and all legs and all arms. I said, so I just want this dress that'll just go up, and with heels, it's just got to go up and go tall, and then with a beehive wig, just so I'm like 7 foot odds. And so I'm just realised I'm wandering down, going, and I want to wear really high heels. I want the dress to be figure hugging and very pointed shoulders and a lovely beehive dress. And I'm like, no other world would you find yourself, casually just describing what you wanted to wear: a frock, dress, heels, down the street in Glasgow. And they did, and they kind of took what Paul O'Grady wore in Cinderella at the Palladium the previous year, rebuilt one, and created one for me, and I just loved it. I loved that whole, because, and Alan will tell you this as well, you can do things and you can say things dressed as a woman that you cannot say as a man. I don't know what it is, but there's just some things that you can say to other women or people in the audience that you just couldn't get away with as a bloke. And I just loved, and I think the Wicked Stepmother is possibly one of the ultimate villains in Panto because of what she does to her stepdaughter. And that's the absolute, one of the biggest taboos, isn't it, is where a parent can harm a child or do something against a child, and that's what the Wicked Stepmother does. And I loved that. I loved that whole moment, the ticket tearing scene. It's just one of my favourites in Panto. It's great.
Do you remember the first time you put on the heels?
The first time I put on the heels was for the Ugly Sister. The Ugly Sister I did in Cinders back in 2010, was it? 8? 2000, anyway. Oh God, it was a bit of a blur. But and I loved that. I was one of those Ugly Sister, and there was two of us, and because we had an established double act, if you like, with Alan and Andy, that was the tricky bit. It was like, well, do we get another? How do we do the Ugly Sisters without creating a double act? And so I had this idea. I thought, look, let's get someone that's really small, because I'm going to be so tall. Get somebody that's really small as a complete opposite to me. So we got this guy, Ross Marshall, who'd worked with us before in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He was one of the Dwarfs. And he'd also been Buttons in a previous Cinderella. So he could come back and be my Ugly Sister. So we had this fantastic opening scene with this brilliant dress that Kudos have since lost, sadly, because I wanted to bring it back last year. But if you think Deborah Carr in The King and I, and she has this huge ball gown. And this thing, we had to keep it in the ceiling. We couldn't take it out of the stage area because it was just so huge. So I would walk on with this massive, huge dress, and it was a showstopper. What an entrance. Never got a better entrance than that. And all you do is walk on my dress. And we got a double hit on it because we got a great reaction when I walked on in this thing. And then Andy, as Buttons, would say, "Where's your sister?" And so I just hooked up my dress and wee Ross popped out. And that got another roar. And yeah, and it just gave me, and that's what I love about being the villain, is because every year you get to be somebody different. Yes, you're the villain, but you can be a female villain, you can be a male villain, you can be a stupid villain, you can be a cunning villain, you can be a clever villain, you can be a magical villain, you can be like a wizard like Ebenezer. And so that's what I love about it, is I get to be a different person every year, but still the bad guy.
What about research? What do you do to find your inner villain and sort of what time of year? Because next year you're you're not Goldilocks.
I'm not Goldilocks.
You're in Goldilocks.
As much as I would like to be.
Yes.
Those days are gone. I think it's Baron von Winkle. We did it before. We did Goldilocks before, and we changed the name. It was Vladimir Heinkel, if I remember correctly. And I think we did him with an accent last time. Because again, I'm talking about where did I channel to find my character from. I gave him the name Vladimir because Hibs and Hearts, the two teams in Edinburgh, Hearts at the time had been taken over by this strange Lithuanian / Russian money launderer called Vladimir Romanov. So I says, look, we've got to call this guy Vladimir. So we called him Vladimir Heinkel. And I just gave him this kind of Russian / Transylvanian accent. I don't know if I can remember. Well, it's all kind of speaking's like this all the time, which is almost a little bit German. But it was one of these kind of things. I do like vampire kind of haircut and things. So and that's what I do. I sort of look around and go, we'll give him that name, and I could play him like that and do like that. The Wicked Stepmother last year, she was just again channeled a bit of Paulo Grady into there, and what he used to do with Lily Savage. She was a bit of a cheap tart, but thought she was everything that was going on, so I played that like that. So yes, I always look for little character traits that I can put in. So I don't know what, I've not even thought about Goldilocks yet, but I'm sure something will come.
Give that till January.
Yes, give me till January.
What happens then on a match day? If you really want to, if it's an important game.
Well, you've got absolutely no choice. But at lunchtime kickoffs, I've seen myself, because the derby comes up in New Year, Hibs and Hearts. So I've seen myself coming in early, going to the pub next door, watching the first half on the telly, coming in here in the half, and then getting ready and listening to the second half on the radio. I remember one year, Hibs were playing at Hearts at Tynecastle, which is their ground, and I'm running up and down the stairs between scenes trying to get the latest on the radio. This is before internet, this is before the web and everything like that. And Hearts were getting beat, Hibs were beating them, and it was coming to like 18-8, 89 minutes, and Hibs were winning 4-2. And I'm bouncing off the walls, I'm running back going, dancing, beauty. So I run down to do the walk down, come back, it's now 91 minutes into the game, and Hearts have pulled one back, it's now 4-3. I'm going, not as good as 4-2, but hey, we've still won the game. And no, hadn't. They then got back and got another one. They scored twice in injury time to level it at 4-4. And I was completely distraught. And I was just like, I slumped in it. I remember running up and down the corridor, up the stairs, shouting, screaming when Hibs had scored, and then complete dejection. So yeah, so I still live it. I still live the match, but it's here backstage at the theatre. And there's a good mix of Hibs and Hearts fans on the crew as well. So the banter's flying.
25 years then.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I see I get my mug, so that's my 25th anniversary
Panto
podcast mug.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Only for people who've been on the podcast. Rarer than an Oscar, as we say. For you mentioned earlier on about having a dwarf underneath your dress.
Yeah.
How do you find the whole politically correct things changed in 25 years?
There's a lot. I think I've seen it go almost in complete turnaround, complete circle, because I did Glasgow in 1995 in Cinderella, and we got Elaine C. Smith and Barbara Rafferty to play the Ugly Sisters, and that was groundbreaking at the time, to have females playing the Ugly Sisters. And there was an outcry about that, because it was like, but that's meant to be the dame role, it's meant to be played by men, and it's like, well, I can assure you, Smithy and Barbara are more than adequately qualified to play those roles and be villains but get laughs, and they were magnificent. So it was the first time, I think, in Scotland that happened, by which time we were, and just as I came into Panto, we were moving away from the principal boy. There were still shows that had females as Prince Charming and Dandini, and that confusing moment where a girl playing the prince was bagging off with Cinderella and things. So it was all quite confusing. So there was this kind of move towards, if you're the prince, you're played by a man. If you're Dandini, you're played by a man. If you're Cinderella, you're played by a female. If you're Ugly Sister, you're played by a female. And we're all very gender specific as to who plays what. Now it's all kind of turning around. It's all fluid again, because of the sort of gender fluidity of anything. I remember I was doing a talk at school last year about Cinderella, and I was going to do a little recreate one of the scenes, and it was a ticket tearing scene. And I remember, hello Alan.
Oh, how you doing? Hello.
Alan Stewart just walked in the room, podcast listeners.
Come in, Alan. Come in.
Sorry,
That's absolutely
microphones and
fine.
everything.
As I usually do during his routine.
Yes.
And I was just telling the story about putting the brush between your legs.
Oh, yes.
And Dick Whittington.
Magic first panto.
Yes, and I thought it was my last as well. As I remember the look of fear on my face.
I shall leave you to it.
Very
Okay,
much.
see you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And seeing the gender fluidity of it all, and that's the politically correctness of it all. I think if you're good at that part, regardless of what your gender is or who you are or what you do, get on stage and do it. And I know that there's continual debate anytime and you get we're getting it just now with the Palladium and big profile Snow White. They're using dwarf actors to play the role of the dwarfs. But similarly, when we did it, we used the similar costumes that we used in Shrek for Lord Farquaad, which had full-size actors on their knees with the little legs. And to be honest, if we can get dwarf actors who are as strong and as good precision performers as the guys that we had playing dwarfs, then yeah, absolutely, of course. But there are a lot of pantos that are out there in the country, and a lot of these actors are in demand. And sometimes, I think demand, exceeds supply. And I think this is a very good alternative. And we weren't in the case of knocking back perfectly good performers to go down that particular road. But that's what we did, because it was a way of, and again, we were using young male Scottish actors who had the first exposure of panto as well. So yeah, it's it can go round and round in circles. But I do believe I think if you're a good performer and you can do the role and you can you've got your timing, you're good at comedy, and with the dwarfs you absolutely have to have all these things. So if you're good enough and strong enough, yeah, absolutely no problem with that. But similarly, I didn't have a problem at all because the guys were brilliant. The guys were absolutely great playing the dwarfs, and the costumes went down a storm. So, yeah, but I know it will. And I watched a debate on the television a couple of weeks ago about that, and they had two dwarf actors, and one said pretty much what I was just saying. He didn't mind. He says he had no problem with it, and he says he's never experienced not getting a role that he was going for in favour of a normal-sized bloke. But he just says, if the parts are there, you go for them, you get them. Some you do, some you don't. So I think some people just like to be offended. I think some people like to be outraged. And that's what the guy was saying as well. He says, so you don't get offended on my behalf. I can get offended on my own. But he says, you got people who are writing letters on complaint who are not dwarfs, who are not, on the receiving end of what's meant to be this controversy. He says, they're just saying that's an outrage. Why could we not have, dwarfs, But it's a debate that will roll and roll and roll. And we, people will buy tickets for panto, as we see here, year on year. We build, we grow, and we get, our business is stronger every year. And, we have a line. There's a line in entertainment, I think, and we have a responsibility with regards to the kids that are there, but we also have a responsibility to the adults. And we want them to have a rip-roaring time. We want them to enjoy. We want them to have plenty moments of laughter, which is just for them. We have moments that are just for the kids, but there are moments just for the adults. And there is a line, and we try not to cross it. And when we've got a school's matinee, I will do certain lines or certain words in a certain way, if it's all kids, because there's no point, they're not going to get it. But then you can enjoy it and have fun with it when there's more adults in the audience. So yeah, there is we're never smutty, never blue, but there's certainly a nice bit of innuendo and body humour, which I think is the ground and the basis of any panto.
What about things you don't like doing in pantomime? Is there any one particular point in panto where you go, not comfy with that, or
product placement? when we have to thank the sponsors, or we've had two Churchill Insurance sponsored the panto one year, and Andy and Alan got wind of this, and they very quickly wrote themselves out of the scene with Churchill the dog. Now, this was part of the contract that the panto producers struck with the sponsors, and the sponsor went, we think it'd be a great idea if Churchill the dog could appear in the show. Now, that's great, but you're stuck with it's a puppet, a nodding puppet, and all it says is, oh yes, or oh no. You're kind of limited with what you can do with it. And I was on the stage alone with Churchill for 80 odd performances. And you can try as much as you can, but at the end of the day, it's just not very funny for a whole routine. And Alan and Andy ripped it absolutely. So what we did was we actually, I think we kind of covered it by trying to do a question and answer thing. And oh yes, no, and I can't even remember what the questions were, but that's the way we kind of got around it. But it's so blatantly obvious what you're doing. The show stops and Churchill the dog gets wheeled on, and I'm kind of looking at the audience going, I'm really sorry, but just bear with me for these next 2 minutes. I've got to get through this because they've paid a shitload of money to be on our poster. So if I had to say there was a part of Panto that I didn't like, it is when we have to do something for the sponsors.
What about the slosh scene?
Slosh, I've been lucky enough, whenever I've been close to a slosh scene, it's been with who I would probably say is the master of the slosh, who's Charlie Caroli. Worked with Charlie on a couple of occasions, and to watch him, I remember watching his dad when I was growing up, so to watch him at work and watch him do a slosh scene. I've done a couple earlier on, and it's a pain in the backside getting cleaned up and freshened up afterwards, twice a day for 6 days a week, 7 weeks of the year. But I could only be there to work. I would only say, I would do it, help with someone like Charlie. I wouldn't. I know something we've never done is a slosh routine, because I think it is a skill. It is an actual art form in itself. And if even down to making the slosh, and Charlie had a secret recipe that his dad taught him how to make the perfect custard pie, the slosh. Because it was the right consistency, and in so much it wasn't too watery, so it didn't just dissolve. When you got it in the face, it sticks on the face, and it's not going to sting your face. So it's all these things, and it was amazing to work with him. He would sit up in the dressing room and create buckets of slosh to go on stage that night. But no, I could never claim that I would know how to do a good slosh routine. You have to learn from the masters.
Do you go to see many other pantos?
I can't. That would be my one regret. My biggest regret about being in a panto. As much as I love being in the show, I can't see anything else. I can't go and you get your one day off, you get your Monday off, and that's you doing your Christmas shopping. That's you catch up with your family or whatever. And there, in Edinburgh, there is only really one panto, and it's ours. And I would love to go to Glasgow, but I think Glasgow work on a pretty similar schedule. They get their Mondays off as well. So I would dearly love to take some time out and just go and see what everybody else does. But we just can't. So that's why we rely on, what Michael and Ed, our writer and director, give us, because they're obviously masters. They're churning out pantos right across the country. They see what's working elsewhere, bring it into us. We work it, we make it our own. So unfortunately, we can't go and see what other people are doing, which I do regret. That's the one thing that I genuinely do. And I know it would sound like a bit of a busman's holiday, but I would love to go and see other performers. I would love to see how other people do it.
You've got your own one-man show as well that you've been doing at the Fringe.
Yeah, it was kind of happened by default. Tales from Behind the Mic. One very similar to that for the poster.
You've got mic envy, haven't you?
Yeah, I love mics. It's radio for you. Andy and I had been working. We'd sort of broken away. Working together in Panto. I'd said, harking back to wanting to be an actor. I said, I'd love to have done a straight play. I'd love to do a play, and just get on stage. It's not Panto and do something that's not a Panto. And he went, I'll do a play with you. So we started doing the festival together for a few years, and we found plays and we put them on, and comedy in all of them. But it gave me a chance to sort of stretch myself a little bit as an actor. So we did that for about 3-4 years, and then one year Andy couldn't do the festival because he'd been cast in River City, which is the soap up here in Scotland. So he says, I can't do the Fringe. And then I'm like, all right, so we're just going to have the year off. And then Karen Corrin, who runs the Gilded Balloon, big venue in the festival, she went, well, don't take the year off, do a one-man show. Take all these stories that you keep telling me about working in the radio and Panto, and do an hour. And that was the scariest thing to sort of take on and say, right, okay, I'm going to do it. And it's one thing saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then it's another thing writing it and bringing it together and putting it on stage. So we did it, and it was a great success. The whole thing sold out, fabulous reviews, extra shows, and it was just me telling stories. I wasn't doing stand up. I would never claim to do that, but I had a lot of audio that I'd collected on the radio and visuals. So I loaded them up using technology, loaded them up on the iPad, had the screen behind me, and used sound and audio to be the tag and the punchline to a story or a routine, and just loved it. Yeah, so then I took that out on tour, had to extend it for the tour, so I had to write new stuff, and that was a great experience, a great learning curve. We may, do something else with Alan's show coming up. I might take some bits of the things that we did on tour, look at doing them again.
What about the future for you? Obviously, not just Panto, but outside of it.
Well, I left my sort of long-standing radio gig at the start of last year. 50-year-old as I was turning, getting excited about playing Atomic Kitten, and Little Mix on the radio didn't sit with me very well. So it's time to go. The station was moving in one direction. I was going in one direction. I couldn't change age-wise. And so I took a break, and then I got an opportunity to work with the BBC. And it was a bit of a leap of faith because they didn't really have any slots for me at that point. But they said, stick with us for the year and we'll see what we have. And then, lo and behold, at the start of this year, I got 2 regular slots, a Wednesday and a Thursday. So that's me in. I've got a regular show now, 2 shows. And that's working perfectly. And I'm now learning, and I'm getting to do a whole different style of radio, talk show. It's a kind of, it's a interview-led culture show about what's going on in the arts in Scotland. So I'm having to up my game and, read books, watch films, go and see plays, and do my research for guests that are coming on the show. So that's like it's like a whole new chapter. So it's nice to be back working with the BBC, and the opportunities that are coming. The documentary I'm doing with the Kings is for them, and so that's working out well. Given Andy's illness, I'm not sure about the Fringe this year, but yeah, I'm going to be certainly here till they stop booing me. That's for sure.
They won't do that.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
What would be your advice for a young actor?
The best bit of advice I would give for a young actor going into Panto is, first of all, treat it seriously. Don't think it's just a gig that you're going to sail through for a couple of weeks and then do something else. It is a totally and utterly unique discipline. So treat it as such. And if you do that, you'll get it. You'll get all the rewards. You'll get all the the fun out of it. Watch other people. Watch the guys who've been doing it for years. Watch what they do. Watch how they time things. Watch how they nick bits from them, learn from them, but most of all, just completely and utterly commit to it. You have to commit 100% to Panto, and because if you don't, you will hate it. If you think this is, we've had people come into the show and go, after the first 3 or 4 days, they're already counting off and ticking off the shows on the schedule. Don't do that. Don't wish this to be over. You're not fast forwarding the next 7 weeks. Enjoy this. Love every show that you're doing, because and if you do, then you will get it back. Just commit and go for it, and you will. If it's something that you want to do, there's so much fun to have and so much to learn. And I've been very fortunate. I've learnt by doing it, and I've watched some brilliant performers. Jimmy Logan, Cannon Ball, Alan, Andy, Gerard Kelly, Elaine C. Smith. I've worked with some of the best names in the business, and I've watched them all like hawks and learnt from them. And right from that first episode with trying to trip up Alan, discipline is massive. Respect is huge. But most of all, just enjoy it.
Do you get the Panto blues when it's finished?
Massively. It's the biggest come down. And I talk about this a lot to my mates and everything like that, because you do this, you're in this routine, bang, 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 and then our last show comes down the back of 7 on the Sunday night, and everyone just goes pew, and disappears, and then you load up your car, and then you drive home, and it's all over. And as much as you're tired and you're exhausted, we generally always say, give us a week off, and then we'll come back and we'll be happy to pick up again. We're just so tired. But it's the biggest come down I can describe is when it's all over. Because it is, and you know that you're not going to see some of these people, you never see them again. Other people you're not going to see for another year. But it's eased, because in the early years of doing it, I wasn't sure if I was going to be coming back the following year to do Panto. I didn't know if I had a Panto the following year. Now I'm lucky enough, I know generally that I'm coming back the following year, so I know that it's only going to be a short period of time before I get to it again. But it is massively. The post-Panto blues are a thing, and you must treat Panto performers very gently when the show is finished, because they're a bit sensitive and a bit emotional and a bit vulnerable.
What do you do then once it's finished?
I still work. I continue to work, and I think I'd probably struggle if I stopped working. I've done that once. I took a week off and did nothing for a week, and it was terrible because my body was going, and I couldn't relax. I couldn't rest. So it was a waste of time me taking time off. So I continue to work, and up here in Scotland we've got burn season, which is the end of January. So I do burns suppers, and then So I do that, and then I begin to wind down. Then February comes, and by February break, I'm almost on my knees, and I try and get a bit of sunshine. So it's a gentle come down for me. So I continue working the radio, do a few events, and then slowly take a bit of time out.
Final question for you. We ask every single guest this: the dream Panto. It can be in any venue you like, any production you like. You can be in the audience, you can be on stage. And your cast, and we need a full cast, because some people try and cop out of this, alive or dead.
Okay. Oh, where do we start? Right, okay. It would have to be the King's Theatre. It would have to be Cinderella. That is the queen of all pantos, and the King's Theatre is my home, so it would have to be here. And I would love to be in the audience, actually, and I would watch. I would have Stanley Baxter as... Oh, now what would we have Stanley as? I think we would have Stanley as one of the Ugly Sisters, along with Angus Lenny. Then we could have Ricky Fulton. I would love to see Ricky work again. So where could we put Ricky and maybe have him as... Couldn't be Buttons. Oh, gosh. You see, if you got Stanley and you got Angus... Well, actually, take out Angus, put Ricky and Stanley. That's going to be an interesting combination to see them working together. Wicked Stepmother, I would put as Jan Wilson. She was such a terrific baddie. Buttons would have to be Gerard Kelly. I don't think I've ever seen a finer performer in that role. So we've got our Ugly Sisters, we've got our Stepmother, we've got Buttons. And you want Cinderella as well? You want
we need a Cinderella.
We need a Cinderella. I would go for our Gillian, who plays Belle. She was Cinderella for us last year, and she's great because she's also very, very naughty backstage, full of wind-ups, full of japes. So we've got Cinders, we have our Uglies, we have our Stepmother, Buttons Kelly, Prince and Dandini. Oh gosh, Prince and Dandini. Who would you get as your Prince? Oh my gosh, who would it go for as a prince? It's the much unloved part, isn't it, the prince? They're just they're always a bit wet, aren't they? They always kind of get up and go, sing a song, fall in love with me. And Dandini, so it tends to be quite a bit of a forgettable role. Who would I have? Oh God, do I have to have a prince and a Dandini as well?
We'll let you
let me off with those.
one.
But yeah, I think I've thrown enough names into the mix for that. For who would I miss? Who am I missing out? I don't think we're missing anyone out there. No, so we've got the Baron Hardup. We would have a Baron. Let's have as a Baron Dick Emery. I think Dick Emery. I would love to have seen him. Loved him on television, but Dick Emery is.
You mentioned a lot of old names there as well.
Yeah.
Were they very important to you when you were watching it as a kid?
Yeah, well, again, because I've last 25 years I've been in theatre, so I haven't really seen other Panto performers. So maybe that's why I've maybe overlooked some strong contenders, but a lot of them because I would love to just sit and watch them again, and watch them do their stuff. So, and I miss Kelly so much. I did 4 with Kelly, and he's in Scotland misses him as a whole. He was our king of Panto, so we miss him. But yeah, just great performers.
He was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
that extras Ricky Gervais.
And that was what was brilliant about Kelly. He could turn his hand to do comedy like that. He could have the audience in fits of laughter, and also in crying tears, because he could do pathos like nobody as Buttons when Cinderella goes away. Heartbreaking to watch him as Buttons completely crushed when he's lost Cinderella. But he was also a brilliant villain as well in EastEnders and Brookside. He was in EastEnders, but in Brookside, the role he was as a villain was chilling. That's how good he was. He could do everything.
And you've got more TV coming up, haven't you?
Oh, well, Outlander is on. It's on Amazon Prime. I've got a fleeting little episode in 1 and 2. So we'll pop it up on that. But yeah, try and keep myself busy.
Well, Grant, thank you so much
Thank
for taking
you.
time.
Thank you. I hope I haven't blathered too much and it's not too hard to edit down.
Not at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.